Immigration policy, how the Biden administration is making changes at the U.S. border. American Rescue Plan. Lawmakers push the relief bill forward. We get reaction from Capitol Hill. Back in the spotlight. Former President Donald Trump clears the air about starting a new political party. And papal prayers. The Holy Father speaks out about the hundreds of schoolgirls abducted in Nigeria. On EWTN News Nightly for Monday, March 1st, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. President Joe Biden's Homeland Security Secretary slams the Trump administration's policies on the southern border, but at the same time, pressure is building there. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
At a news briefing today, Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas ripped into the Trump administration's immigration policies, calling them cruel multiple times and saying that it will take a long time to fix it, but many remain skeptical of that.
It takes time to build out of the depths of cruelty that the administration before us established.
On the southern border, hundreds of children a day without visas are crossing over with no parents. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says he's trying to make it safer.
For example, we've also begun to rebuild a process for young people to be able to access avenues of protection without having to take the perilous journey.
The Biden administration wants no more funding for the border wall, the end of the Remain in Mexico policy, and a path to citizenship for millions here illegally. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops earlier wrote, "We continue to call for immigration reform, which provides a path to citizenship for dreamers and the undocumented."
We have begun to develop and rebuild the program to reunify individuals with their families here in the United States, as was once the case.
But the Biden administration's new policies on the border are considered disastrous by opponents. GOP chairwoman Ronna McDaniel recently tweeted, "The Biden administration is actively trying to undermine immigration law and is creating a crisis at our border." And Alfonso Aguilar with the Latino Partnership for Conservative Principles tweeted last month, "These policies are not humane and will put lives at risk."
Mayorkas also told potential immigrants that now is not the time to come to the United States. And he said there is no crisis at the border, instead calling it a challenge. All this as President Joe Biden was meeting virtually today with Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador to discuss the situation. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Nearly 4 million doses of the newest COVID-19 vaccine are being delivered to states in the United States. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine was being loaded for delivery this morning in Kentucky. It is given in a single dose. The pro-life Charlotte Lozier Institute says the vaccination does use abortion-derived cell lines. The Senate takes out President Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus aid package this week after it passed in the House Saturday morning. President Biden is calling for quick action from senators to pass it before government assistance runs out later this month. But Republicans say not so fast. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric?
Well, Tracy, Democratic senators plan to pass the next COVID relief bill through budget reconciliation. That means that they can pass it with a simple majority without Republican support. Now, because it is divided 50-50 in the Senate, this could be the first major vote for Vice President Kamala Harris to break the tie. Although the House has already passed the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package over the weekend, that's not stopping Democrats from making strategic political moves. Some Democrats in the House want Vice President Kamala Harris to pull a rare move in the Senate, something we haven't seen since 1975. They sent her this letter wanting her to ignore the decision by the Senate's parliamentarian to keep the $15 federal minimum wage increase in the bill. Democratic Senators Bernie Sanders and Ron Wyden had considered Plan B, to punish billion-dollar corporations that didn't pay workers enough money. But my sources on Capitol Hill say Democrats will likely drop that plan. Senate Democrats do say if a wage increase is not put into this COVID relief bill, it will come.
Let's start with what we all agree on, that the federal minimum wage of $7.25 is too low. It has to be raised. This isn't the last bill we will adopt this year. There may be several other chances for us to move a minimum wage bill.
The House COVID relief package will likely be slashed by Senate Republicans. Its current version includes $1,400 stimulus payments for some Americans, an expansion of child tax credit, along with enhanced unemployment aid. But Republicans say any bailout for local and state governments and some $50 million in so-called family planning funding, money used for abortions, won't fly.
The bill, Mr. President, that you're pushing has got more to do with the liberal wish list than getting us back in business due to the COVID package and helping people with the vaccines.
Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are definitely feeling the pressure. As we know, unemployment benefits are set to expire at the middle of this month. From the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Congress is set to begin debate this week on sweeping voting and ethics legislation. House Resolution 1 is a top priority for Democrats. The nearly 800-page measure would be the biggest overhaul of U.S. election law in at least a generation. Republicans say the proposal would weaken voter confidence, and one pro-life group says the bill may target their free speech. Former President Donald Trump took the stage last night for the first time since leaving office. He spoke at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, and made it clear that he intends to remain a dominant force in his party.
CPAC, do you miss me yet? Do you miss me?
Former President Donald Trump walked on stage as the closing speaker at CPAC in Orlando, hailed as a returning hero. He says the new administration is off to a rocky start.
Joe Biden has had the most disastrous first month of any president in modern history. That's true.
And took direct aim at President Joe Biden.
Already the Biden administration has proven that they are anti-jobs, anti-family, anti-borders, anti-energy, anti-women, and anti-science.
Amid speculation he would start a new party outside of the Republicans, he pledged to remain part of what he called our beloved party.
We have the Republican Party. It's going to unite and be stronger than ever before. I am not starting a new party.
And touched on pro-life issues.
We are committed to defending innocent life and to upholding the Judeo-Christian values of our founders and of our founding.
President Donald Trump did not use his speech to announce plans to run again, but he repeatedly teased the possibility.
Who knows? I may even decide to beat them for a third time, okay?
A straw poll taken at CPAC shows 55% of attendees would support Donald Trump for president in the 2024 primary. Current Florida Governor Ron DeSantis came in second place. Joining us now is Vince Coglianese, editorial director for the Daily Caller. Vince, welcome back. Great to see you.
Thank you.
I want to get your overall thoughts on this year's CPAC. But first, what did you think of former President Trump's speech? Was it what you were expecting, Vince? Were there any surprises?
It actually was sort of what I expected, and it was interesting. I think your commentary up front here is right. He is a force and will remain a force in Republican politics. And it's interesting because, as you noted, he settled a big question, which is, will he continue to be a force within his own party, or will he break off and start his own party? The answer to that really clear now. He says, no, he's doing this with Republicans. And he's got a real opportunity here because coming up in 2022, the margins here are so close. We have an evenly split Senate. The only reason the Senate is in control of held by the Democrats at the moment is because Democrats hold the White House and thus the tie-breaking vote. And in the House, the narrowest margin in modern history between the Democrats and the Republicans. So Republicans do have a big opportunity in 2022 to take back both houses. I think President Trump, in making a strong case against the excesses of his opponents on the left in the Democrat Party, and specifically of Joe Biden, he can unify Republicans around opposition to what the Democrats are doing, and that could pay dividends in 2022.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, President Trump, he did tease that he may run in 2024. What's your take on that? What do you think is next for him? And also, again, the Republican Party?
I learned a while ago never to predict with confidence Donald Trump's next move, because chances are you're wrong. But throughout his political career, he's often flirted with running for office. Prior to ever running for president, he did that multiple times, and then each time didn't do it until he finally did in 2016. So we'll see. Right now, he seems to be flirting with it. I do think it's interesting that he didn't declare outright that he will be a candidate, which could leave some space for some other Republican contenders. One other thing from the straw poll at CPAC that I thought was super interesting, 68% of the people who were there said they would like Donald Trump to run again, but 95% of the people who were there said they would like Trump's policies to be what the next presidential candidate runs on. So whether or not it's Trump, it's definitely the things that brought him into office that animate the Republican Party.
Yeah, very interesting there. I want to go back to that straw poll. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he finished second, a pretty strong showing there in that straw poll. Let's talk about him. What do you think of him, and why do you think he's so popular?
He appeals, well, there's two reasons, I think, for that event. That event was in Orlando, Florida, and you have Republicans who live in Florida who were attending. So that's going to give Ron DeSantis some hometown bump. But the truth is, there are really only a handful of governors nationwide who have stood up for their people and said, look, during this pandemic, I'm not going to force you to do things. I'm going to tell you what the science is, and I'm going to let you manage your life on your own because you are an adult in America. This is what liberty is all about. And the two governors who jumped to mind who did that were Ron DeSantis of Florida and Kristi Noem of South Dakota. Interestingly, Ron DeSantis came in second in that straw poll, and Kristi Noem came in third. I think that tells you a big story, which is that Republicans are very interested in leaders who cherish and protect their liberties.
Yeah, and real quick, we probably have maybe 30 seconds left. But overall, what was your overall take on the conference this year? How did it compare to other years?
This is a party out of power. So now the opportunity was, and this is how they used it, to call out all of the excesses of the left, all the ways the Biden administration is failing the country in their view. And it's an opportunity for a party that does have some fractures in it to close those off and to unify. And I think you started to see that at CPAC this weekend.
All right, Vince Coglianese, editorial director for the Daily Caller. Thank you so much for your analysis. Great to have you on.
Nice to be here.
Coming up, convicted of corruption. A former world leader is sentenced to prison. And new interview. What Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI is saying to an Italian newspaper. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy faces a year in prison after he was convicted of corruption and influence peddling. The former French president tried to bribe a magistrate in exchange for information about a legal case in which he was implicated. He plans to appeal and can ask to serve his sentence at home. Prince Philip has been transferred to a hospital in London that specializes in heart conditions. The 99-year-old husband of Queen Elizabeth has been undergoing treatment for an unspecified infection. Buckingham Palace says Prince Philip is comfortable and will remain in the hospital for at least a few more days. COVID-19 vaccinations have begun for residents of the Ivory Coast. The West African nation received a shipment of AstraZeneca vaccines a few days ago. Priority is being given to healthcare workers, teachers, and members of the armed forces. Pope Francis says seeing a psychiatrist when he was a younger priest helped him deal with anxiety. In an interview with a newspaper in Argentina, the Holy Father said the sessions helped him develop ways of dealing with anxiety, including listening to the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. Pope Francis consulted the psychiatrist once a week for around 6 months. Pope Francis prays for 317 schoolgirls who were abducted in northern Nigeria. On Friday, unidentified gunmen broke into a boarding school. They also attacked a nearby military camp to distract from the kidnapping. Parents met yesterday at the school waiting for answers from the government about their daughters. Joining us now with more is EWTN News Rome correspondent Colin Flynn. Colin, good to see you. So give us an update on the girls and also the Holy Father's message.
Tracy, good evening. Pope Francis called this a vile kidnapping of 317 schoolgirls, and this happened on Friday morning in the town of Jangabi in northwest Nigeria. Now, the girls were taken by armed men, some it is believed pretending to be security guards. They were taken from a girls' secondary school and forced into trucks, and they haven't been seen since. The local police commissioner told reporters a search was underway and urged locals to remain calm as they stormed the streets. This kidnapping comes just a week after 42 students and staff were kidnapped in another part of northern Nigeria, but those students, thankfully, they were released safely after a ransom was paid. Anonymous sources have also reported that the police know the location of the girls, but a military intervention is off the cards at this moment so as not to jeopardize their safety. And during his Sunday Angelus, Pope Francis asked everyone to pray for the kidnapped students and for their safe return.
And Colin, I also understand that this week the Holy Father is leaving the Vatican for Iraq. What else can you tell us about the preparations in the trip?
That's right. Preparations are well underway, including in the city of Karakosh near Mosul. And a lot of planning for this trip has been done by the Apostolic Nuncio in Iraq, Archbishop Micha Leskovar. And over the weekend, the Archbishop tested positive for COVID-19. Now, we're told he is experiencing mild symptoms and is self-isolating and is continuing to work on the planning of the trip from his isolation. And on a positive note, today Iraq received the first delivery of the COVID vaccine. In a statement from the Health Ministry of Iraq, they are receiving the Chinese Sinopharm vaccine thanks to a grant from the Chinese government. And they've also approved both the Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccine and expect delivery of both of them in the near future.
And in some other Vatican news, tell us a little bit about an interview that an Italian newspaper did with Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI.
That's right, Tracy. The Pope Emeritus spoke to Corriere della Sera and recalls his decision to step down as Pope in 2013. He was the first Pope in almost 600 years to do so. Now, he said in the interview it wasn't an easy decision to make, but he thinks he did the right thing and made his decision with a clear conscience. He says that some of his friends and colleagues are still angry about it. And he also addressed, Tracy, what he called conspiracy theories about his resignation because of a number of scandals that came out during the end of his papacy. But the 93-year-old says critics did not want to believe that the decision he made was a conscious decision. He emphasized that there is only one Pope, and that is Pope Francis. And the Pope Emeritus, he also was asked about President Joe Biden, in which he said, quote, "It is true he is Catholic and observant, and personally he is against abortion, but as a president he tends to present himself in continuity with the line of the Democratic Party." Now, in regards to Pope Francis's trip to Iraq, Benedict XVI said that it is a very important trip. He said that it is unfortunate it comes at a difficult time due to the pandemic and other security reasons, but he ended by saying that he will accompany the Holy Father with his prayers. Tracy?
Okay, Colin Flynn, EWTN Newsroom correspondent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy.
Up next, the convergence of religious freedom and medicine. And surprise discovery. See what archaeologists uncovered near Pompeii. The Illinois Department of Children and Family Services says that there is no evidence the Chicago priest abused two brothers in the 1970s, but the agency says that does not mean the accusations against Father Michael Pfleger are untrue. The priest has denied the allegations. The Archdiocese of Chicago is still reviewing the case. The head of the Catholic Medical Association says the Biden administration is trying to overturn religious conscience protection. In an opinion piece for EWTN's National Catholic Register, Dr. Michael Parker says in part, quote, "New regulations will undermine individual liberty by granting politicians and special interest groups the right to decide what is good and evil, and in healthcare, what is deemed best for the patient." And Dr. Michael Parker, president of the Catholic Medical Association, joins us now. Dr. Parker, thank you so much for your time today. First off, for those who may not know, what are religious conscience protections And why are they so important?
Well, currently, under the administration from previous presidency, the rights of individuals to refuse to perform procedures such as abortion or sterilizations or even transgender surgeries were protected. And it didn't have to have any question regarding it. If they felt that, if they had a religious concern about this procedure, they could be protected in not performing that procedure. And that's extremely important for us as Catholic physicians and for other healthcare providers who have deeply held religious faith.
Yeah, and you say the Biden administration is trying to overturn religious conscience protections. Can you talk more about that and exactly what the administration is doing or trying to do?
Well, I think we see what they're trying to do by their current selection of their or the Health and Human Services Secretary and Assistant Secretary. With Xavier Becerra, who has been nominated to be the Secretary of the Health and Human Services, he has a longstanding record of opposing individual objections to performing abortion and providing for contraception. And in the state of California, mandated that abortion be a part of all insurance coverage and that providers be required to either refer or provide those services. He's also brought cases against the Little Sisters of the Poor to require them to provide contraceptive services within their health care plan, which has already been struck down by the Supreme Court as unconstitutional. But we also see in his assistant secretary choice in Dr. Levine, who is a transgender, that would like to make any objection to transgender ideology a mental illness. And so we see they're quite hostile to people of faith and people who have conscious objections to these ideologies. And we are very concerned that if Dr. Levine and Mr. Becerra are approved, that they will start to implement these measures through regulations through the Health and Human Services.
Yeah, and you also say government restrictions on conscious protection should be opposed by all in a free society. Are we seeing anyone joining the faithful in opposing these measures?
We are. The Catholic Medical Association, along with other like-minded organizations such as the Christian Medical and Dental Association, legal firms such as Alliance Defending Freedom, and even bioethical centers are joining together in a coalition to bring the truth out about conscience protections and why they are so important, to educate legislatures on why it's so important to have legislation that protects healthcare workers in their conscience rights, and also to promote an authentic healthcare that respects not only the health of the individual, but the spiritual nature of healthcare. After all, healthcare is about relationships. People choose their healthcare providers because they have a shared value system and they want somebody who feels that is going to do the best for them. And so it's very important that we get our patients on our side to advocate for conscience protection.
Well, Dr. Parker, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And finally tonight, a story of discovery in Italy. Unearthed near Pompeii, a timeless treasure. Archaeologists say they found a ceremonial chariot made of bronze and tin in excellent condition. It is another clue to what life was like in Pompeii before the city was buried in volcanic ash 2,000 years ago. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.